In the budget mouse scene, there are few, if any, options to match an otherwise white setup. With this in mind, the M602 at just $20 makes it a great, if not the only, choice for those who are particular about both aesthetic and price. But beyond that, is the mouse a good option, or is its unique color all it has to offer? Starting with the exterior, the top is a glossy white plastic that is quite easy to clean and doesn't show many scratches, with the rest of the mouse being matte, which is grippier but harder to clean. There is also a hexagonal pattern on the thumb and pinky rest to further improve grip. Finally, on the bottom, there are 3 sliding pads which hit my personal sweet spot of slickness and friction with my soft, extended mousepad. Build-wise, it is a really solid mouse, and I feel like I could squeeze or bang this mouse in any way and it would come out alive. Likely because of the build quality, it's not the lightest mouse at around 110 grams, but it also isn't overly heavy, and the cable is nicely braided with a very sturdy feeling USB plug. This choice of materials, as well as the build quality, all make for a mouse that feels really good in the hand. Solid, and with nice grips that allow for easy movement. For my 18.5cm long, 8.5cm wide hands with a hybrid grip style, this mouse filled up my hand and was very comfortable to use for extended periods. The tiered ring finger and pinky rest is a fantastic addition that makes it even nicer to use, and all in all, this is by far the most comfortable cheap gaming mouse I have ever used or reviewed. If your hands are especially small, such as a child's hands, then this mouse might be a bit big, especially in terms of width. And this mouse certainly caters to palm and hybrid grip users over claw grips. But I still think claw grip users will find this mouse quite comfortable, and overall I think the ergonomics of this mouse are more than up to snuff. As far as the buttons go, they are nearly all stellar. Primary and secondary feel just right to me, with a satisfying and tactile click, and while aren't silent, also aren't loud. The scroll wheel is amongst one of the best I've used in any mouse, having amazingly satisfying scrolling, a very grippy textured rubber, and a click that is just as, if not more satisfying than primary and secondary. Mouse 4 and 5 aren't as good, with a bit of wobble and sponge, but I found them to be placed quite well. Mouse 4 was maybe a bit far up for my liking, but it wasn't too hard to reach, and the texture on it makes it very easy to find and use. Lastly are the DPI and color mode selection buttons, which are on the top and mostly stay out of the way. I did accidentally press them a couple of times, but for the most part it was not an issue, and while they are a bit spongy again, if you're pressing these buttons a lot, you might be using your mouse wrong. Now, I'm no pro gamer, and I mostly just play single-player story games with the occasional multiplayer match with friends, so I'm not a great judge of a mouse's sensor quality. But while daily driving the mouse, I didn't notice any problems or flaws with its sensor other than the sensitivity, as the mouse would still track movements nearly a centimeter or about half an inch above my mousepad, which might take some relearning of muscle memory if you're used to only barely lifting your mouse when moving it. For me, there were only a few times it was annoying, and mostly I didn't notice or care. As far as the lighting on the mouse, I actually really like the look of the strips on either side, with my only gripe being that the Redragon logo is a bit busy looking. The lights are reasonably bright, and as far as the effects, there are 8 different modes: breathing, rainbow, full light, wave, go without trace, reactive, flash, and off. My personal favorite mode was wave, and I find the reactive one humorously useless, as it only turns the lights on when the mouse is being moved, which is probably the time you're least likely to want to admire the lights. As far as the software, I'll be honest, I downloaded it and used it for about 5 minutes before I became annoyed with its clunky UI and unintuitive labeling. But for the sake of a complete review, I forced myself to try it out a little bit more. The software doesn't allow for full lighting customization, only adjustments to the 8 pre-configured modes. It does allow you to entirely remap any button on the mouse to any other mouse button, keyboard key, or even certain actions in Windows such as copy-paste, volume up-down, and changing stuff like the polling rate of the mouse, browser actions, media keys, and macros. In the DPI tab, you can adjust the preset 5 DPI levels anywhere between 6 and 7200, and then all of this can be uploaded to the mouse in one of 5 profiles that can then be selected using the small button on the underside of the mouse. For anything other than RGB customization, the software is quite functional, but still awkward. And so as not to have to deal with the clunky UI, I personally used this mouse's default options for the entire time I had it. Also worth mentioning is that the software is Windows only, which means no Mac and no Linux, but as I use the default options, I wouldn't consider this a big deal. So in conclusion, this mouse is hands down my favorite budget mouse I've used, and honestly I think I'd be perfectly content daily driving it for gaming. It feels really good in the hands, the buttons are satisfying and tactile, and the sensor suited all of my needs. Excluding the Redragon logo, it looks great, especially in white, and my only complaint is that the software isn't very polished. If you have smaller hands, then this might not be the mouse for you, but for anyone with medium or large hands, I think they'll love this mouse. I wholeheartedly recommend it. It's not just a good mouse for $20, I think it's just an outright good mouse. Really good job, Redragon.